So in this video, I'm going to be looking at some more recent additions to my physical media collection, and more specifically, I'm going to be looking at some releases from Indicator. So I have already got some Indicator Blu-rays in the collection, just the standard edition ones. Revenge of Frankenstein, obviously a Hammer classic. The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll. I've also got The Damned with Oliver Reed. One of my favourite Hammer films, Captain Clegg, which I'm so glad to have on Blu-ray. If you're a fan of Hammer horror and you haven't seen Captain Clegg, 100% check it out because it is really, really good, really underrated Hammer film, so definitely check it out. Anyway, that's the Indicator Blu-rays that I already have in the collection. So more recently, I've been picking up some of the limited edition releases from Indicator. So first up is actually a 4K release, and it's Cold Eyes of Fear. And I'll be honest, the thing that drew me to this release was the fact that the music is scored by Ennio Morricone, obviously famous for the Dollars trilogy with Clint Eastwood, etc. Very famous music composer. And all of these Indicator Blu-rays, these limited edition ones, come with these just fantastic booklets that have just so much information on the film. And I'll be honest, with the genre of giallo, I find it a little bit tricky to get into these films, but I'm hoping this one will be good. And the fact it's on a 4K release is exciting. Right, so next up, a film that I have actually seen and I'm very excited to talk about, and that is The Iron Rose, which is a French film directed by Jean Rollin. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know too much about Jean Rollin films. I had heard the name, but I honestly couldn't tell you any of his films. But to be honest, French films I haven't explored too much into. So this film is essentially about a man and a woman who meet at a party and decide to go on a date to a graveyard, as you do, and they decide that they're going to make love in a tomb. Now, as you can imagine, in a horror film, that doesn't go very well. It's beautifully directed. Honestly, it's a very, very beautiful film. Now, I think, I could be wrong, but I think Jean Rollin also directed a vampire film or a couple of vampire films, which I'd be very interested to check out. It took me a while to get into this film. I'd say maybe the first 10-20 minutes or so, I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but it genuinely hooked me, and I was completely kind of taken by it towards the end. And I love the ending. The ending has a very ambiguous conclusion. A really beautifully presented physical media release of this film, and this is kind of the perfect example of why I pick up physical media, because I can find films like this, and it's a genuinely good horror film that I think I'll definitely be revisiting in the future. So yeah, The Iron Rose. Right, so next up we have a film that I had heard of, but I didn't know anything about, and it's Harlequin. And this is a Australian film directed by Simon Windsor. It actually says cult Oz-exploitation thriller. And I'll be honest, the thing that drew me to this was the cover. The cover really stood out to me. Very excited to check this one out. So once I do, I will let you know my thoughts. Right, so next up we have Thirst, which I believe is a vampire film from the 1980s, 1979. And yeah, this is another Australian film, an Oz-exploitation horror. And I think, just judging by some of the imagery in this, that I'm going to have a great time with this film. I love a vampire film. Very excited to get into this one. I love the fact that we have, like, on a lot of these, we have like the outer shell with a bit of artwork on, and then on the inside we have like the original poster for the film. And a lot of these limited edition Blu-rays, as you can see, are just stacked with a load of special features, documentaries, audio commentaries, stills galleries, all sorts. Right, so lastly, for this Indicator haul, we have a pack of 2 films, a box set, and this is El Vampiro, which is 2 blood-sucking tales from Mexico. Now, these are Mexican vampire films. There's a pack of 2, so you've got the Vampire, also known as El Vampiro, and the Vampire's Coffin, which I think is pronounced El Atud del Vampiro. I could be totally butchering that. So yeah, these are 2 vampire films produced in Mexico. So I have seen the first of these films, which is El Vampiro. Now, if you're a fan of Universal horror, more specifically the Dracula films with Bela Lugosi, I would 100% recommend checking this film out, because there's a lot of inspiration from the 1930s and 40s Universal monster films. Just with how they look, if you took a still from this film, you'd think it was from a Universal monster film. And again, just a very chunky booklet with just loads of information, which I can't wait to dig into. I haven't seen the sequel yet, The Vampire's Coffin, but really excited to check that out. So the vampire in this instance is played by an actor named Abel Salazar. And interesting to note that this is the first instance in which a vampire has fanged teeth. Not like Nosferatu, where he has like the front teeth fanged, but as in like the incisors. I always thought it was Christopher Lee in the Hammer horror films, but it turns out Abel Salazar was the first vampire on screen to have the fanged incisors, which has become like super duper iconic with vampires. It's basically synonymous now with vampires. And Bela Lugosi in the Universal films never actually had fangs. So really interesting piece of history there. If you're into your vampire films, this is almost like crucial to have in your collection, because you know it's kind of like the beginning of that kind of trope. Now there's a lot of moments in this film where they've been obviously quite restricted with the budget. There's a lot of moments where a bat is on a string being kind of thrown about the set, and there's actually a couple of really good kind of transitions where the bat will then turn into a vampire, which is a little bit clunky, but given the time and the budget of the film, you kind of just have to admire that era of horror and what they were making at the time. I'm really excited to check out The Vampire's Coffin as well, which is the sequel to the first film. Having liked this film so much, I'm really excited to see more from Abel Salazar as the vampire, and a really creepy giant bat as well on the cover, which is a little bit terrifying. And again, flying the flag for physical media. I probably wouldn't have known anything about these films if it wasn't for these releases. So very thankful for these releases of these films, because it's just given me a whole new kind of love of foreign films and films from other eras that I wouldn't have necessarily been watching. And something I really appreciated about this film is that it didn't try and rip off Dracula or try to kind of rehash the story. It kind of had its own unique story and set of characters and plot and twists and things. So, but overall it is a fairly unique vampire film that I would highly recommend to anyone who's a fan of Universal horror, as I say, or just vampires in general. So that is it from this haul of Indicator limited edition Blu-rays. I will get around to seeing these ones, so if you want to see more in-depth reviews of these, please do comment below. We actually recently hit 2,000 followers on TikTok, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So if you haven't already, go and check out the TikTok page. And also we are very fastly approaching 1,000 followers on the Instagram page. So again, go and check that out. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because you'll see more of these kind of long form videos where I'll do unboxings of physical media and some physical media hauls. If you have any suggestions for videos you'd like to see going forward, or as I say, some in-depth reviews of some of my current collection, please do let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.